A massive show of secular support. The political divide appears to be widening in Turkey. Why the government's apparent compromise candidate failed to quell the protests, and is deadlock inevitable? This is Inside Story. Hello, I'm Sami Zaidan. Well, they turned out in the hundreds of thousands, perhaps as many as 1 million, as tensions between Turkey's secularists and Islamists reached new heights. Courtney Timms with the following report.
The message to the country's governing AK party was clear. We don't want a pro-Islamic president. And this is the man who's fueled the protests. Foreign Minister Abdullah Gül, the only presidential nominee. As the president, he'll have the power to appoint judges and military chiefs. Critics fear an Islam-friendly president could take the secular out of Ataturk's republic. Much of the opposition boycotted the first ballot on Gül's election and are now challenging its legality in court. Turkey's all-important military has also weighed in, vowing to defend the secularist republic. But Gül is refusing to give up without a fight.
There is no chance of me leaving the presidential candidacy. My nomination was not an overnight decision. It was made after long polls and processes. We are all waiting for the Constitutional Court decision, and the court will know best.
That decision is expected sometime this week. If he survives that, he still faces 3 more rounds of voting in Parliament. If he fails, early elections must be called. Abdullah Gül was seen as the best compromise to reduce the tensions of recent weeks. Hundreds of thousands rallied in mid-April amid fears Prime Minister Recep Tayyip Erdogan was going to stand for president. Erdogan took the hint and nominated Abdullah Gül. But Gül's candidacy has failed to ease the tensions. Gül started his career in the pro-Islamic Welfare Party. That has since been banned. And his wife wears the Islamic headscarf, a deeply divisive symbol in Turkey. Whatever the courts decide, the fact the secular Islamic debate has reached the presidency is a sign in itself of changing times in Turkey.
So what is the way forward? Well, to talk about the issue, we're joined by our guests from Turkey. Yasin Aktay is a professor of sociology and politics at Selçuk University in Istanbul. Emin Şirin is the vice president of the Secularist Youth Party and joins us from Ankara. And Cengiz Aktar, a journalist at the Turkish Daily News. He's in Istanbul. Thank you for all of you for joining us. If I could start with Mr. Emin, why has what should have been a pretty straightforward procedure to elect a president turned into a constitutional crisis involving everything from international politics and relations to miniskirts and headscarves?
This is an unfortunate situation, really. The problem is that the process that we are facing for the last couple of weeks has not been a process of election, but it has been a process of appointment by AKP, the presidential nominee, and they want to appoint him.
But they argue in their defense, they would probably argue that it's been a process of obstruction from some of the secularist parties, like the ones you're a member of.
Well, I'm not the member of a secularist party. I'm a member of a democratic party in Turkey. And the issue of democratization is more important than the secularization and so on, from my point of view. But the state of law is more important than anything. And if you are talking about democracy, consensus and participation and plurality are very important issues. The reason that people are objecting to Abdullah Gül is that during the process of the choosing of the nominee, AKP has not consulted anybody. They counted on their majority in the parliament, who represents only 25% of the electorate, and mainly the opposition is coming from this, this imposition of the candidate.
All right, if I could bring Mr. Yasin Aktay into the discussion there, would you agree with that analysis that the problem has really been a lack of consultation, perhaps even respect for democracy on the part of the AK party?
indeed, it is very. I am objecting, of course. I am not agreeing with that idea, because that is the result of the constitution. The constitution opened the way. The existing constitution opened the way for such kind of decision, because the constitution, the text of the constitution is very clear, and it gives this right to AKP, and it is not an appointment. The AKP has the majority in the parliament, also in the society. Also, it is not that much. I really cannot understand how some. Of course, I understand, because of they are oppositional parties, and they resist and they object to that idea, which is by very logic of the existing constitution, because in this, according to this constitution, the former president all were selected in the same way.
But okay, but to be fair to the secularist parties,
they want some discrimination.
Sorry to interrupt you, but the secularist parties would argue that they may have the majority in parliament, but they only have 35% or under 35% of the vote.
But that doesn't mean the vote that you haven't gained are not counted in democracy. The vote that you are counting are you are gaining are counted, because you have at this counting, this way of encountering is very false way. It is not true.
All right, let's
they have.
Sorry, let's go over to Mr. Cengiz Akhtar from the Turkish Daily News. Yeah. What do you think the Constitutional Court is likely to decide? Will it allow further rounds of the vote in the Parliament on the presidency to take place? And if so, what will that mean?
Well, good evening, Sami Zidan. I mean, all indicates that the Constitutional Court is pretty ready to deliver its report. Today they were talking about delivering it on Wednesday. But it's pretty sure that they will reject the way the first round of the presidential nomination at the parliament has taken place.
And what will that mean, practically speaking, then? An objection to the first round, does that mean an objection to further rounds?
Well, I suppose so, yes. I mean, in any case, the candidacy of Mr. Abdullah Gül, the present Minister of Foreign Affairs of Turkey, is in jeopardy with that. And I have serious doubts that he may continue as nothing happened. In the meantime, so many things would have happened. I mean, the Constitutional Court decision, the meeting today, a huge meeting in Istanbul, and thirdly, the ultimatum of the army. I mean, AKP and its nominee cannot ignore all these developments. I'm not for it, but I think now that we are in the midst of a crisis, yes.
All right, if I could bring in Professor Yasin Aktay once again into the discussion. You're someone who understands the line of thinking prevalent at parties such as the ruling AK party. If the scenario does emerge that further rounds of voting will not take place, what is the next step from the AK party's point of view? Calling for early elections?
Indeed, every option before the AK party are more rational than the other parts, because it is really irrational for the secularist party to demand or to insist on the early elections, because in any case AKP is gaining and is to achieve more than the others. So it is really very irrational, and I cannot understand how you can change the game in between, in the middle of the game, because what is happening now is to change the rule of the game when these create or these make some advantages to AKP, because the rules are for all the parts of the game, and so far the rules play it in behalf of the other parts, and now the ball is on the field.
All right,
of
well, let's ask Mr. Amin. Let me turn to Mr. Amin Sareen. Sorry to interrupt you there, but what do you think would the secularist parties have to gain from early elections? Would they be able to unite and unseat a strong comeback by the AK party in any early call for early elections?
Listen, the question is not a fight to win more votes in the parliament or in the early elections. The problem is exactly to fight the understanding of democracy that people like Mr. Yasin Akbay is presenting. For people like Mr. Akbay, democracy is a question of numbers. If you get 25% of the votes of the total voters, it means that you can have a fascist authority in the things that, in the running of the country. This is not democracy. The reason that we are calling for early elections is that we have to get out of this game of numbers, and we have to normalize the democracy first.
But sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Amin, but aren't numbers important? When you look at statistics such as the recent surveys which have been conducted only at the end of last year, just a matter of months ago in 2006 in November, a survey conducted by the Turkish Economic and Social Studies Foundation found that actually only 22.1% of Turks believe that the secular system in their country is under threat from religious movements, while the overwhelming majority, some 73%, do not. Now, you're talking about an authoritarian parties imposing their will, but who is really guilty of that?
I'm not talking about they are imposing an Islamization of the country. Do not misunderstand the question. The problem that we are facing is the process of the election now is not a process of election. It's a process of imposing their will. The question today is not secular state against Islamization. The problem today is that a party who has 25% of the votes of the total voters to control all the elements of the government and the state. This is what we are fighting against.
All right,
this is why we have to have early elections.
There's plenty more, obviously, to discuss, and the debate will continue. But now it is time for a short break. When we come back, we discuss the role of the Turkish army and what it might play in the ongoing standoff. Stay with us.